Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
You're on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Also, subscribe to our podcast below in the description.
Podcast. People have been asking, this is all you guys do? No.
Podcast.
Podcast.
We're
That's
podcasters
the
first,
main bread and
YouTubers
butter.
second.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter. All right, John, are you getting concerned about all the 49ers injuries? They seem to be slowly stacking up here with basically 3 weeks until the season starts.
I'm not I don't have a chart in front of me, but would it be an educated guess if I went out on a limb and said it feels like the Niners lead the league in injuries over the last 4-year stretch? Because, Guy, it felt like the last 2 years, I guess before they made the Super Bowl run, a historic amount of injuries with Kyle and John when they first got there. They fired, and listen, it's in the NFL, there's always a fall guy, as Chris Carter once said. And it was the Niners, it was multiple. It was doctors. It was training. They blew out the whole fucking thing. And there is a randomness. And randomness is the wrong word. It's football. Guys get hurt, right? Like you make a tackle, you just might break a bone or dislocate a shoulder or pull a hammy sprinting. So you've been around coaches forever. I've been around. It's so easy to be like, what is the strength staff doing? I don't know. The same lifts they've been doing forever. It's not some guys just pull hamstrings, right? But they've had a little stretch here where Jalen Hurd back-to-back years went down. He's a third-round pick. Deebo wasn't necessarily on their watch, though it does feel like they kind of controlled the environment in the sense of what the players were doing at the impromptu workouts led by Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no doubt in my mind that Kyle was leading the script. But he got hurt running. He broke his foot. But that's a pretty big injury. K'Wan Williams, who is one of the more underrated players in the league because he's just a nickel corner, but while he's not quote-unquote the starter because he's not an outside guy, he's the Niners' second-best corner, and he's a physical player. That position now, when you say in the NFL, like,
you rush the passer sometimes?
Wouldn't it used to be like a throwaway, like, who's your slot receiver?
Totally.
Who's your slot receiver now is kicking your ass.
And to me, the first guy he's not the first guy. Carlos Rogers was one of the guys, remember, when the Niners got him for those great defenses, was like, this is what you want. This is a slot cornerback. He was highly drafted. He was not a shutdown outside guy, but he was an elite nickel corner, right? Elite.
Well, it's hard, Guy. You're playing in little spaces. You got quick little guys, but now you'd say it's not just the Wes Welkers and Edelmans. You get like Kelsey lines up there sometimes. Mike Evans. Like all these guys are getting shifted and motioned. It's not just a throwaway little white guy in the slot.
Mobile quarterbacks are now part of your awareness all the time.
One thing I learned when I was in the NFL, they're a huge part of your run defense because a lot of times when teams see you go to nickel, they go, Peyton Manning classic, run it down their throat because they have a linebacker off the field. Well, K'Wan Williams is a great run
Painter.
He's a physical SOB.
Means draw play. I learned that this week. Well, I mean, remember Jimmy Ward last year? Remember his injury, John? Again, this fits the bill. This is not some weird – it was an unpadded practice. He broke his collarbone. I don't know how many collarbones have been broken in unpadded practices, but it's not many. Happened to Jimmy Ward. Here's the other thing. D. Ford, Quan Alexander, not K'Wan Williams, but Quan Alexander. These are two guys who have extensive injury histories, right? So this is – I do think it's fair to say – if you're a Niner fan,
guys, they take some flyers on some guys. Not flyers, but I mean they sign guys that are injured. When they signed K'Wan Williams, like he had a torn ACL when they signed him, right?
Great signing.
Yeah, but then he got hurt.
I do think it's fair to say you are just kind of holding your breath for the next 3 weeks to get to the NFL season if you're a Niner fan, and there's no guarantee that once the game starts, it's like, okay, we made it. Now we don't have to worry about injuries. We all know it doesn't work like that. But, like K'Wan Williams is an example. It's a grade 1 strain, quote unquote. That's good news. It's not that bad, but you don't have a lot of time. You don't want to get in a position where you rush him back too soon. You
didn't practice all off season, right? These reps are important to get your speed locked in, correct? Your first game of the year is against the Cardinals. What do they have? An explosive passing game. An explosive running, it's not like, we got some great looks at practice for Kyler Murray from C.J. Beathard. If anything, to get ready for that game, I would imagine it's going to be a wide receiver on the practice squad playing Kyler Murray, right? But you got to be able to throw too. It's just it's impossible to get ready for him. You just have to be healthy, and you're going to need your team. You're going to need the fastest players on your team to be healthy for that game, right? It's not like a big, heavy game. It's going to be a speed spread game. And the Niners, you'd say, like some of my memories last year, for as great as it was he gave them massive problems. Now, it turned out he was Rookie of the Year. You couldn't help but like, oh, the Cardinals are on. I might take a peek at this game.
For sure.
And he gave a lot of people massive problems. But the Niners do have to play this guy twice, right? It's not just a one-off game. Like, he's a divisional opponent moving forward. And I would say this season, just because of how weird it is, you never know. A guy could get sick. The injuries could be weird. Like, you can't just drop a random game that you aren't supposed to drop, right? It's a big game given it's like if you said their first 3 games on paper don't look that hard, right? Jets, Giants, Cardinals. If I'm going to say they're going to start 2-1, the one better be to one of the New York teams. You could live with that, right? On the road, New York, early, it's weird game. You do not want to lose the Cardinal game just for big picture divisional games, the divisional record, sometimes the tiebreaker, even if it's against Seattle and stuff. That's week 1. I'm not calling it a must win or anything, but it's not a nothing game given its divisional opponent.
No, and none of these games are, because getting that 1 seed there's only one seed now. There's only right.
Well,
I mean, there's always only been one seed, but
year,
I just mean the bye. Now there's only one of those byes.
Yeah. See, to me, I don't focus in. You say that a lot. Like I can't really be like it's just going to be really hard to get. I know they got the 1 seed last year. And maybe, like, to me, that's a conversation once you get to late December. Who knows? Like, I just think it's just, is that really a goal? I mean, I know it is, but
it's not so much about it being a goal. I just think it is a way to emphasize the fact that one game is going to make a big difference when it's all said and done, and you don't know which game it is. It doesn't mean you're going to go unbeaten.
Which before, the difference between the 1 and the 2 was never that big a deal. Right, yeah. You were always cool with being the 2 seed.
Yeah, you're. It's fair. I'm not saying week 1 that's what we're talking about. I'm just saying there will come a time where that is all we're talking about down the stretch of the regular season, and we'll look back and say, "Oh, that game mattered. That game mattered." But yeah, you're right. I don't want to overemphasize it because,
but it's going to be a massive story.
It's hard to get the 2 seed before 2. We saw that last year. That was really difficult.
But now you'd argue the 2 and the 3 seed aren't any different, right?
Yeah, so fair point. I also think we've seen already. It's probably too much to say this because Jalen Hurd tore his ACL, but I've been saying this for several months. Based on the lockout year, there was an increase in Achilles injuries that year when teams came back. If you are the 49ers, and especially if you accept the premise that they were not going to have a quote-unquote hangover, at least mentally, and you and I both think that was not going to happen to them. They lost the Super Bowl, but they were inspired by how close they got, blah, blah, blah. The biggest thing to stop anybody is injuries / COVID, right? I mean, it turned out Joey Bosa said that a couple weeks ago, like the team that does the best job with COVID is going to have the chance to win. And then we watched Hard Knocks and figured out that Joey was repeating something his head coach said. So it was a good job of coaching there, like player regurgitating what the coach said.
Going to be hard to tell in training camp because it is kind of a bubble and they're just going home. It'll change a little bit once the season starts, I think.
It's true, but COVID you can control a little bit more than you can football injuries truly are. Like, you can control, I'm just not leaving the house. Doesn't mean you don't get it. Doesn't mean something weird doesn't happen. Whatever. But
you can't control someone falling on your leg.
We've heard multiple coaches say this. Kyle Shanahan has said this. At some point, we're just going to have to play football, and then all bets are off.
Yeah. Well, that's what with the pads coming on all around the league. That's what's happening. You saw yesterday, Gerald McCoy tore his quad. Did you see the clip? He was just giving the guy a look for being an offensive tackle. The dude stepped on his foot, and it was just but it's just, that's football. Like, that guy has to stand there. That guy always stands there. You just rotate in these one-on-ones, people pouring hamstrings. Like, there is no avoiding it. Now, I haven't on the ticker yet seen a major Achilles injury.
Which ticker are you following?
Just the Roto World ticker I go to every day and just check the injuries. I'd say
keep an eye on our ticker. It just says ease.com promo code.
Jalen Hurd. Actually, Brandon Brooks for the Eagles, but he did that before training camp even started. it's inevitable. I mean, guys get hurt, right? There's nothing you can do. You just kind of keep your fingers crossed. And if anything, it happens in a game. To me, it's a huge kick in the dick when it happens. It's one thing in preseason games. To me, in this weird season, it's another thing just practicing against yourself leading up to the season. But right. I think Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney would be like, happens to us all the time, right? We lose a starter in training camp in college, which now we're in the college model, right? Getting ready for the season.
Like college Alabama, model without, you're saying because there's no preseason games.
Yeah, Alabama, to get ready for that season, I bet if you went to Alabama, you went to Ohio State, you went to, Oregon, they have several really physical scrimmages. Like you can't just show up week one on a typical college season this year's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's inevitable. Like you might just have a scrum, or even to me, it's just guys getting rolled up on, guys falling funny. You just get hurt playing football. There is no avoiding it. For whatever reason, it just feels like the Niners have more people that get hurt.
They need to stop that.
Yeah.
My analysis.
I agree.
All right. Let us know what you think down in the comments below.
Like the video.